Oral Roberts now, you got yourself a real challenge. They may be seated where they are, but only in theory or in number, whatever you want to say. You faced them before. They were up on you by 10 at halftime. That is a tough matchup. That's a dangerous matchup. What are your early thoughts on that game?
Yeah, it is a really tough matchup. But before I get into Oral Roberts, JR, I gotta tell you, when we were celebrating the other night, and then I looked over after I was done with my, whatever I was doing, and there was Coach Beard still waiting to give me a fist bump, which shows you, Coach, I forgot, I lost my mind, and there he was, wanted to congratulate me. He waited, and I said, Coach, I apologize. I just, got caught up in the moment. He says, hey, I would have been doing the same thing, man. Don't worry about it. And then to take it a step further, he and I talked later that night just about basketball and getting together this summer and exchanging ideas. And I mean, he's an ultimate competitor, and for him to kind of wait around and then for us to talk later that night, I thought was incredible. But Oral Roberts, they have 2 star players. They led the country in 3 balls made. They're the best free throw percentage shooting team in the nation. They're very, very well coached. I think that game that we played early in the season, you can kind of throw out because this one and done NCAA tournament thing is that's what it is. That's why it's March Madness, because madness happens every single game. But they're a team that can really put points up in a hurry. We've got to play great transition defense along with have great three-point defense and not put them on the foul line and get them an early bonus as well. So it's a challenge because you're playing against a team right now that's got incredible confidence and is really, really feeling good about themselves.
When I look at your basketball life, right, I've known you. You and I came together when you were 23. You were the coach and the GM of the Rapid City Thrillers. And you've had an amazing basketball life. Coached a couple of times in the NBA as a head coach, as an assistant coach. Had that great run at Nevada. Like, your entire life has revolved around this sport. I know you're in it, but also you have a different perspective, right? I mean, because you've been in it so long. How much fun are you having right now? And at this time of your basketball life, how would you compare this experience to everything else you've been through in the game?
Well, Jim, I'm probably having more fun than I've ever had. I mean, the cool and neat thing about college athletics, it's just a whole different, lifestyle. You get closer, much, much, much closer to your players than you do at the NBA level. And it's funny because I had a high NBA executive call me the other night after we won, and he was laughing at my celebration or our team celebration. And he said, that moment, that feeling is what separates, college from the pro level. Because really the only people that are feeling that way at the NBA level is after and only if you win an NBA championship, which means one team, per league or per, one team a season. And so to me, this is just every game that you can advance, stay alive in the NCAA tournament is a feeling that you really can't explain.
I was going to say, Eric, if you could, in fact, you get me to my next point. The celebration was just so great, but they all are. I mean, can you even explain that? Can you put into words for what that feeling is like for people who have never felt it and most likely never will feel it? What does that feel like in that moment?
Well, it's just so, it's so interesting. You spend the whole summer with your team and you're talking about things and we all have goals and dreams and stuff. And the Sweet 16 is, we all want to make the NCAA tournament, but to get to the Sweet 16, it means for everybody that's able to be there that it's a big time accomplishment. It's hard enough just to get in the tournament, but when you can win a few games, and having been on the other side where you get into the tournament and then you lose that first game, it just goes so quickly. And you don't get the true experience. I know at Nevada when we made a Sweet 16, I felt like that was a feeling like I had never experienced with the ball club, and so you really can't describe it in words. And to me it's the greatest feeling you can have because you're celebrating, with college age student athletes that that dream about participating in an NCAA tournament.
We're talking to Eric Musselman, the head coach of Arkansas. Eric, it's totally different situation. But to your point, when you went to the Sweet 16 with Nevada, that was such an amazing thing. And now you're doing it with Arkansas. What's it like now compared to what it was like then, knowing that these are two totally different situations?
Well, I think for me personally, JR, it's like, I know how hard it is to get here. So not just myself, but my son who's on staff, my other son, my daughter, my wife, like we feel really blessed to have an opportunity, to go to two of these things in such a very, very short time frame. And I haven't been in college very long, so I don't take it for granted. I have a lot of friends that have been doing this a long time and are really, really good coaches, and they have not experienced an NCAA tournament, let alone, two Sweet 16 runs. But for our program, Arkansas has got incredible history, which is a lot of the reason that we thought the job was one of the premier jobs in the country. And it's been a long time since the Razorbacks have been to a Sweet 16. So I think that, and I'm not back there. Obviously, we've been in this bubble. But from what I'm hearing, because my wife landed back the other day and has gone shopping and went out to dinner once, and she just said everybody in the entire state is excited and pumped up for what's happening when you can have an impact like that. And I think our players will feel it once they get back to campus, because for all of us, normally we would be going home, Jim, between games, and you would be able to experience that in the hotels with fans and the cheerleaders and the band. We don't have any of that feel, so it does make it completely different. But I think our players, when we do get home, whenever that may be, I think at that point it's really going to sink in the impact that this year's team had on our entire community.
Eric Musselman is the head coach of Arkansas. He joins us once again. Muss, what about that point? Like, you've talked about how much you love this group and the fact that you've got a mantra, one more day, one more game. To that point, you've said that if these guys do want to go home, they can go home. All they have to do is lose, and they'll be right back home in Fayetteville for dinner. So how significant is it that these guys just keep battling, and the fact that they do want to stay together and they want to stay in that bubble?
Yeah, and it's interesting because we have used that theme of one more game, one more day, one more meal together. We don't want to eat. We understand that the NCAA's got a plane waiting when you lose, and you're going to end up having dinner back at home, and we don't want to eat dinner ever at home, and we want to prolong that as long as possible. But for our guys, I think that you've really got to talk and show them what happens when it ends. And so we've shown other players in other programs, crying after games, and we've talked about the press conferences that coaches, when they come out and say that they have an entire locker room, crying. I think it's human nature when you're stuck in an environment that's not easy. Or even today, we just finished practice, Jim, and we don't play until Saturday. It's Tuesday. These guys have had a full season. They know that a lot of their buddies are at home that play on other programs, and they're back to semi-normal student life elsewhere. It's a grind, and you got to really, really want it. And then that's what we talk about every single day, is we know that this is not easy. I know the fans think it's easy, but it really isn't easy. And when you watch the NBA, there were some of those guys in their bubble that you could tell maybe they wanted to get out of there as quick as possible. And I think that at least with our team, I haven't sensed that at all.
Eric Musselman is joining us. Muss, what about life in the bubble? You haven't sensed it from your team, which is great, but what about your family? You mentioned your family. Now, your son Michael is with you. He's on the staff in his second season, which is amazing, but I've talked to coaches who are in the bubble, and they've talked about the mental health side of it. After the win, you normally would celebrate a win with your daughter, with your other son, with your wife. What's it like not to have that experience?
It's really weird, because it's, I haven't held my wife's hand. I know that sounds kind of, weird or whatever, but I want to just give my daughter a hug. I miss that at her age, and it pained me the other night to stay socially distanced from my wife and daughter and sister and my other son as we boarded the bus, and they were about 15 to 20 feet apart from us with a rope separating, kind of where they were and where our bus was. 'Cause the families in all of this, like, they're the ones that sacrifice for us to chase our dream as coaches, and to not be able to high five them even, or give them a hug. It's difficult. But, for all of us, we want to get to a finish line. We want this tournament to be pulled off. And the NCAA has done a great job of we are really in a controlled environment where I feel it's the safest possible. I don't think that we'll see any other, hiccups at all based on, how our team is going from practice to weights, to the games. I think they've done a tremendous job, but it really is challenging, to be separated from your family, because this has started all the way back at the SEC tournament where we never came home. So it's been a mental grind for everybody, for sure.
Eric Musselman joining me for a few more moments. Hey, Mus, in the build-up to that game, Todd Furman had said, quote, "When I look at the head coaches in this game, I think it's one of the biggest mismatches we're going to see in the round of 32. We talked about it going into the game against Utah State, what Chris Beard's record looked like during the NCAA tournament. Well, he has to be licking his chops," end of quote. Now, Mus, I know that worked its way back to you, but I know you. I've known you a long time. You could have very easily said, that's all part of it. Everybody's got a job to do. He's got a job. I've got a job. But that's not the way you responded. You seem to take that pretty personally. Did you? And if so, how come?
Well, first of all, I think that I've been in the media, when I wasn't coaching, and I was transitioning from the NBA to college. I did media for 3 years, and I know how difficult that is. And I know that they have a job, and I know that there's criticism that comes with the job. That's why people get paid at the professional level and the collegiate level. I just felt like it was a little bit disrespectful. I think Coach Beard is one of the best coaches, in the history of college basketball. I know he's one of the best coaches. So it had nothing to do with that. It was just, the term of licking his chops and not having respect for the coaching profession. And I've worked really hard to gain respect, as a coach. And I've coached against some really good coaches, whether it be Pat Riley or Phil Jackson. And so I did take offense to it. Maybe my family got me a little fired up about it, but it's all good. It's all fun. And, we move on, and we're trying to figure out how to beat Oral Roberts.